Let's just begin with the biggest news that's just come out. You are now saying that it is appropriate for the president to be removed. Do you see that as a realistic possibility right now, given the climate of our kind of political reality? Would that indeed turn down the temperature or turn up the temperature, do you think, right now?
I think it's important for us to make a clear statement. The actions that we have seen from this president, particularly in the last few days, are simply unacceptable in a democratic republic. And these are behaviors well outside the bounds of how a president should act, and raises all sorts of questions. We have a president that has been putting out conspiracy theories, refuses to accept the results of a fair election, continues to claim fraud when there's absolutely no evidence of widespread fraud. In fact, those conclusions have come from his own administration, from Attorney General, Department of Homeland Security. As a result of that, he continues to stoke the passions of followers and incite violence, which we saw in very clear terms. It just shows yesterday is a clear demonstration of how dangerous the rhetoric the president is using is. When you have pro-Trump supporters storming the Capitol in a violent attack and threatening the folks in an unprecedented way, that's simply unacceptable.
Do you see any real possibility that the president would be removed before his 2 weeks are up?
Well, it's we certainly need to call it out. We need to say this is the kind of action that needs to be taken. A president of the United States should not be in a position where they're inciting their followers to march on the Capitol and to be engaged in a violent attack. We have never seen anything close to that type of behavior from any president of the United States. That the kind of activity that we saw yesterday, you would expect in a third world country. You would expect it from someone who is a dictator in that country, or attempting to have a coup or to bring authoritarianism. That's never existed in the United States. The rest of the world looks at the United States as a leader for democracy, a beacon, a shining light on the hill. That did not happen yesterday. And certainly the blame, in my mind, falls squarely on the shoulders of Donald Trump and the type of very dangerous rhetoric he's been engaged in for far too long.
I mean, there is maybe perhaps some kind of silver lining. I mean, the amount of kumbaya, and I watched a lot of the Senate proceedings live late into the night, as well as proceedings of the House, and it was amazing how much unity there was. I mean, that it seems to have been an unintended consequence, as you mentioned, very conservative organizations coming out and condemning this kind of behavior. Former President Bush saying this is the kind of thing we see in a banana republic. There has been, if there is a silver lining, a certain amount of American cohesion, especially in the political sphere, that's come from this. Do you have any concern that pushing for the removal of the president and sanctioning him in this strong way when he's only got 2 weeks left could dismantle that?
Now, I think what I saw yesterday, and it was encouraging to see a number of my Republican colleagues step up and make speeches on the floor, talking about how we have to come together and we have to face facts that we had a fair and free election. There was not widespread fraud. Our democracy is built on democratic institutions, and fundamental institution is that people know that elections are done fairly and you can trust elections. I need to have more Republican leaders doing that. Unfortunately, too many in the Republican Party have not been willing to step up and say, these are the facts, folks. This was a free election. Vice President Biden will be inaugurated as President Biden in a couple of weeks, and Kamala Harris will be the vice president. It is the American process. We go through elections, and the people of this country get to decide who will be their next president. We need to come together. We've had peaceful transitions of power in this country over 200 years, where Democrats and Republicans have come together and accepted the results of an election, and there's been peaceful transfer. Some Republicans are saying that now. Far too many are not. We need to come together, and I'm hoping what we have seen this last few hours or over this last day will bring people together to understand there's something bigger than short-term political gain or political advantage. It is our long-term security and the health of this democratic republic is more important than any of that, and we have to come together as American people.
How are you doing? I mean, it's not just a matter of being physically harmed, but I mean, the emotional toll it must take on you. to have so much kind of chaos erupting around you, and in the early stages not knowing what was happening. If there's literally a coup coming to overthrow the government. So how are you doing today?
Well, it was intense. There's no question. Yesterday, we were in the chamber. We were beginning a debate on an objection that was brought forward in joint session. So it was a pretty normal kind of situation in the Senate chamber with the vice president presiding at that point because of the nature of what we were discussing. But to be sitting there in the middle of that, then to see the Secret Service rush in and remove the vice president off of the podium very quickly, to have the sergeant of arms jump up on the podium and say, everybody stay in your place, we've got an emergency, and then bark out orders to lock all of the doors to do a complete lockdown. That certainly is disconcerting to say the least. And then shortly thereafter, we were told to immediately evacuate the chamber and were hustled to a secure location. But I think the thing that disturbs me most after that is just how sad I feel for where we are as a country right now, that we have this kind of division. We have a president that incites these kinds of passions and incites this kind of violence to attack the United States Capitol, which is the citadel of our democracy in this country. We're in a very bad place. We've got to get through this. We've got to heal. Our country is the strongest when we are together, when we understand that as Americans, we have common goals, we have common dreams. We have to work together. Hopefully this will be the low point, and we can now start building a better, brighter future for all of us.